Welcome back, friends, to The Pulse. I am David Harris, Jr. Well, as investigators dig deeper into the 5 suspects plotting a deadly attack at the White House UFC event, the full horror of what was averted is chilling. This group of extremists were operating across multiple states, actively mapping out sniper positions and planning explosive drone strikes, with a hit list that included President Trump, J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, and Benjamin Netanyahu. But the most agonizing part of this story isn't just the tactical threat that was neutralized, it's the heartbreaking decision that stopped it. 19-year-old suspect Tyson Proper wasn't caught by a high-tech intelligence dragnet. No, he was stopped on June 10th, just 4 days before the event, because his own mother made the courageous choice to call their local police. His family had grown deeply alarmed by comments that he made that were sympathetic to Adolf Hitler, alongside his alleged plans to rendezvous with individuals that he met online for what he called hit-and-run missions. And to make things even worse, he used his high school graduation money to stockpile a shotgun, a rifle, ballistic plates, and thousands of rounds of ammunition. Friends, this story has struck a deep chord with parents across the country, forcing a look at a boundary that no mother or father ever wants to face. And that's the agonizing moral line between protecting your child and protecting your country. Joining me now is Beverly Hills psychiatrist, Dr. Carol Lieberman. Doctor, thank you for joining the Pulse this evening. How difficult is it for a parent to accept that their child has become a danger to society? And what psychological barriers usually prevent families from speaking up until it's too late?
Yes. What Tyson Proper's mother did was very courageous. A lot of families, a lot of parents would not do this for a number of reasons. First of all, they don't want their child to get into trouble, to go to jail for life. Second of all, they don't want to see that they may have done something wrong. I mean, clearly something happened to that child, especially, for example, here he is, he takes his high school graduation money and buys these weapons and so on. So something, it's a lot of anger. It has to do with anger. It has to do with feeling like kind of hopeless that you're going to be able to achieve something other than that, something more positive. I want to make a legacy. I want to make some kind of a stand. I want people to know who I am. And then to choose something this violent. I mean, it would have been thousands of people that could well have been killed. And so there has to be some kind of psychological problem, perhaps untreated mental illness. Perhaps he was bullied. Perhaps he was watching too many violent video games, family dysfunction, abuse, something. All of these things are the typical things that come together to make a child or a teenager go and do something violent like this.
Well, and it seems like he maybe had just a lot of too much time online. At just 14 years old, this kid was bragging about his tech skills, already showing signs of intense paranoia, claiming that people were spying on his TikTok groups. Take a look.
I am, many of you are not going to believe this, but I'm a professional type person. I'm a geek guy. I'm very good with computers. Alright, hello. Again, in the video. Alright, so the reason why I left TikTok is because of, since people say China's spying on us, I don't think that, and I do think it. I believe it and don't believe it.
Well, fast forward 5 years, the feds say he was totally consumed by horrific conspiracies, believing the government was run by a Jeffrey Epstein-linked elite that literally sacrificed and consumed infants. Is de-radicalization even possible for someone like this, or has their reality been so permanently warped by the time the FBI actually gets to step in?
Well, looking at that video, it really does show that there were problems, psychological problems way back then. And it's sad that he didn't get, I presume he didn't get or didn't get enough treatment. But that's a good example. These kinds of signs should make parents bring their child to a psychiatrist, before they get to be older and contemplate doing these kinds of violent things. He seemed very lonely. He seemed very confused. and then, add to it. And he might well have been affected by propaganda, real terrorist, radical Islamist terrorist propaganda online, because the way that what they were planning, the drones was the first thing, and then the secondary thing was to make people panic after the drones dropped explosives, and then to go into a line and to then go right into an area where there would be snipers, and then of course to go to the White House. So these are tactics that actual radical Islamist terrorists use. So there would probably has been some kind of exposure to that as well.
Yeah, as much time as he was spending online, there's no telling. I'm sure he stumbled across something that was definitely trying to radicalize him. Now, to the outside world, the kid just looked like an isolated teenager staring at a screen in his bedroom. But how do internet forums and encrypted chat groups act as an incubator for nurturing this level of extreme violence?
Yes, because, what happens is if you're chatting with people who have similar ideas to you, it normalizes it. And in fact, it kind of accelerates it and makes you think that you're right. And you have friends who would want to join you. And that's what happened. He was on TikTok, and then he gathered people around him who had similar ideas. And they ultimately, they've been working on this since March. And then they ultimately made this plan. But parents need to really pay more attention to their children, pay more attention to signs that might be, that they feel like a lot. The problem is when kids are lonely or depressed, they spend more time online than when kids who are not. And so if your child is spending a whole lot of time online, whether it's in chat rooms or watching things that they shouldn't really be watching, or, that's a sign in itself. And you need to find out whether they're lonely or he may well have been bullied in school. These are the typical kinds of things that I mentioned before.
Yeah.
And the problem is, too, there are a lot of problems, but one of them is that we're not having family dinners like we used to, where parents could then talk to their child and say, how was your day today? What did you do today in your school? And so on. And try to nip things in the bud. Even when families do have dinner together, it's usually with the phones next to them, and so they're not really communicating.
Yeah, there needs to be a lot more communication, I think, around the dinner table, or especially just between parents and their kids. Now, we're seeing a very chilling trend here. In the Charlie Kirk case, it was obviously too late, unfortunately, but it was Tyler Robinson's parents who did call the FBI once they sensed something was off. Now it's Tyson Proper's mother stopping a massacre by turning in her son. So what does this trend tell us about how deep online radicalization has gone when the only real line of defense could be the parent?
Parents. Well, and another example of that is the San Diego mosque attack, where one of the two young men and one of their mothers did call the police, but by the time the police, started paying attention to it, they had already attacked the mosque. But yes, this accelerationism, that is the problem that really kind of connects all of these things, where people have different things that they're angry about. It's an underlying anger, and then they, whether it's towards a political figure or, in this case, it was a lot of different things. It was people who were rich, who were going to be at the UFC. It was people, of course, Trump. And other politicians, they were checking out which politicians in Congress were funded or received money from Israel, the Israel PAC. There were so many different, so it was anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, so many different things kind of rolled into one. And basically what it is to destroy America because they're not happy with one or more of these kinds of things.
Yeah, it's truly shocking that in the United States of America, we've got basically to have a homegrown domestic terrorist at 19 years old that was ready to carry out this level of violence. It should wake up every single parent to want to know exactly what's your kids, what apps are they using, what chat groups are they in. If they're living underneath your roof, parent, they're your responsibility, and you could be their last line of defense before something goes completely off the rails. Dr. Carol Lieberman, God bless you. Thanks for joining the polls tonight.